And the bottom line is there's a tendency to slip because the little things you did to make yourself extraordinary are the little things that when you stop doing them, they make you ordinary. And then you're riding the bell curve down to mediocrity. And then you're on the bottom making excuses.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by legendary high school coach Tom Inman. He was a head coach for 17 years at two schools, Plano and Grand Prairie High School. In 9 years at Plano, Coach Inman led his teams to 3 regional finals, 5 district championships, and a state championship in 2006. Coach Inman was also named Coach of the Year in 2006. I asked Coach for his overall coaching record, and he said, "I have no idea because I never cared. If I did, I wouldn't have scheduled the monster schedule we played." Coaches, you're going to enjoy this episode. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Yes, sir. What's up, Coach?
Nothing, man. What are you doing?
Oh, just got done training the guys in second period athletics. So coming off of that, I always feel really good.
You know, it's really funny. I used to love basketball. And when I first started coaching, I remember that I used to always love Tuesday and Fridays, and I tolerated Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday because that's what players do, right? And when you're a young coach, you're more of like a player than a coach, right? And so I remember my old head coach, Stan Hicks, says, "You know, I just really enjoy practice so much more than games." It's like, "Oh, loser. Are you kidding me? What's wrong with this dude?" Right? And I started to kind of come to realize it, right? Yeah. You know, and then it really sucks when you play the games that you're supposed to win because there's really not much joy in those. That's why I feel bad for those guys that play in just garbage districts, you know, and then they can't choose it. I mean, no one picks who you play in the UIL and everything, but man, it does set you up for failure sometimes.
Yeah, if the best teams that you're seeing are in playoffs, you know, if you're not seeing some team, a coach from Midland Christian told me that. He said, "We want to make sure that at some point in our season we play someone better than what we'll see in district or playoffs." I thought that was a good point.
Well, we were 8-5 after 13 games, and people in Plano were like calling the village, asking for the idiot, you know, me. Well, we lost to Sock and Dunbar, who played for the 4A championship game that year. So we lost to both of those finals, right? And then we lost to Bowie. They were really good. Can't remember who else it was, but teams were Duncanville. You know, so it wasn't like we were playing Mo, Larry, Curly.
They're okay. Yeah,
they're pretty good most years. So anyway, it was it's kind of like I felt kind of bad for Dean. You know, he's looking up at the clock and he's down 11 points against Lake Highlands, and he had been down. I mean, I know that they had played some tough games, but I bet you hadn't been down 11 points with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, so they didn't have any type of not even relative experience, actual experience.
Right.
Reference, because you can use relative experience based on maybe something you've done in the past or even watching some film or visualizing, but actual experience it trumps that.
Right. Well, yeah, you got to be able to say I was down 11 with 2 minutes left and we scored 12 points. Yeah, because that's really, really hard to do. Yeah. I remember when we played I just got back from France. I went to see John Robertson and
nice.
Went over there and hung out. We had a blast. And we were talking about when we played Southwell Cliff his junior year, right? John's a real good rim finisher for a guy his size, but he's 5'11", okay? And I remember we played that night, and we're down about 17 points, let's say a minute and a half left. So I call them the reflective timeout, right? I don't rant and rave. I'm rant and rave at practice. I don't rant and rave at games. Right. I do it with refs because I hate them. But, I mean, as far as, you know, players and coaches, there's no reason to. Refs, there's every reason to. So call timeout. There's about a minute and a half left, and I said, guys, look, man, y'all talk about wanting to win a state championship. I said, look down there. See Shady? Remember Darrell Arthur? He only played in the NBA for about 13 years. You know, that's all. Him and Kevin Rogers that went down to Baylor and kicked around the NBA. So that's what you got to beat is a team like that, right? And so anyway, I turned to John. I said, John, let me ask you a question. I said, how big do you think Shady is? He said, oh, probably about 6'10". I said, and he's going to be 6'10" the next time your dumbass, over penetrates and puts the ball into his armpit. John, there's a spacing concept to basketball, you know, and it's really hard because how do you teach that? If he can go to the rim and finish against everybody all year because the biggest guys say 6'4", you know, because there is a difference. You know what I'm talking about. You got it. When you went to Baylor, you stopped that idea that you were a rim finisher pretty dang quick.
Oh, yeah. Or really that I was an offensive player at all. And I had to become a defensive player, hustle guy, just because the level of athleticism was so different. But, yeah, you're right on the money there.
Well, you need 5 people to play defense all the time. You only need one guy to shoot it.
Love that.
Go to Brooklyn Nets, you know. What a
good
train wreck
point.
that is. They're probably going to fire Steve Nash over that, which, I mean, fair or not, they probably will, because that's how the league, you know, tends to work. And, you know, part of it, you'd say that was a bad marriage. I mean, that guy hasn't played a lick of D in his life. And then he hired Steve Antoni, and get that Antoni, no D, to be his assistant coach. So, I mean, what did you really think was going to happen? You're going to take Fat James, resistant Kyrie, and aloof Kevin, and they were going to dig in and grind for you? Makes the game tough. So you got a special kids. You talked about leadership, you know, like a culture. And you know, the thing I always believed was, I remember I used to always love to sweep the floor. It's a really weird thing, but I like to sweep the floor, and I like to do it barefoot, because if I do it barefoot, I can feel how clean it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I'd come in the morning with those vapor lights, you know, you put the lights on, and for the first 3 or 4 passes, it's damn near dark, right? And I just like to do this. So I wouldn't always do it without shoes on, but I'd almost always sweep the floor, and people come up and say, "Hey, Coach, I got that." I said, "No, it's all right, I got it." Well, why are you sweeping the floor? And I said, "Well, why do you sweep the floor? Okay, it needs to be swept. It's dirty." I mean, you know, but if you're not willing to do the things you're asking people to do, just shut up. Just shut up. Don't talk about how time's valuable when you're consistently late. You know, don't talk about how discipline matters when you can't keep your lid. You know what I mean? That's coming from a relatively volatile guy, but I must have known something, because I never got thrown out one time in 30 years. Not once.
Yeah.
You know, am I a smart aleck? On steroids, but that's not the point.
Well, hey, this has already been awesome, and I did want to thank you just so much for giving up your time and coming on here and talking hoops with me. You're just one of those. I think you're probably known, and I don't know if you know this, but as a coach's coach, like a guy that we all love to either hear from or watch or talk to. And you gave me some great advice years ago down at the state tournament in Austin. And I was asking you, Coach, how do you win a state championship? I was really young, and you said, "Matt, you know, we're just jockeys. The best horses win." And really what that did, and you went on to clarify, I mean, we can help bad horses become a little bit better.
Right.
When you have those great thoroughbreds, you know, the ones that are probably going to win it, you know, that's the key. But that was really freeing for me, because there's a part of, as a coach, you think, I don't care who I have on my team, we should be winning or contending for a state championship.
Can will this to happen. I can impose my
yes.
Right, exactly.
So all that to say, thank you for coming on. Thank you for that advice. And this is just an honor for me, man.
Well, I love talking basketball with you. I have a lot of respect for you, because there's a lot of phony people in our business. You know that. There's a lot of duplicitous, backstabbing people. There's a lot of people that are, you know, phonies to the nth degree. We don't need to go into any names, but you can visualize a few of the people that we're talking on a high school level. I'm talking about specifically, you know, and you could have made a lot of money chasing dollars. I would have been, if I went to college, I either would have been Chris Beard, or I'd have been one of those guys on the subpoena audio tape with the FBI. There's no in between with me. There's no shot, right? There's no way it would have worked out, you know. And at the end of the day, I think you settled at a really good level for you, because you have a lot of influence on a lot of people. And another thing that I really admire you for is me and Oldham just talked the other day about how you and Jeff Clarkson, no 2 guys I've ever met, balance it better, because I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian, but I don't actively preach. I don't go to church, you know. And I grew up in a neighborhood where it was like kind of stuffed down your throat, the old Catholic approach. You know, if it doesn't fit, you just push harder. And I'm resistant to that kind of thing. And we admire we admire you guys to no end, how much you live it. You don't talk about it, you walk it, and that's really cool. You know, without being self-righteous, without being pious, you know, you get your point across. Right now, could you make more money? Sure, you could. Could you be at a bigger?
I think so.
Sure,
yeah, all of the above. But I appreciate you saying that. And you know, it's funny. I'm honored to be put in that conversation with Jeff, because that's always something that I've admired in him, is he is such a competitor. And he's actually gotten us close to like getting in trouble a few times at Hoop It Up 3-on-3 back in the day, because he just is so fiery, but yet lives it. And I think what's inspiring to people is authenticity, and guys like you, and I feel like hopefully I'm that way too, can smell it a mile away when it's not real.
Well, you know, it's funny, because you mentioned me and Clarkson, which are probably temperament-wise are as polar extreme as you ever could get, but we're both exactly the same competitor, exactly the same person. And like I said, I just really admire the fact that I think you guys are good leaders, because going back to culture, man, don't tell people to be what you aren't.
Yeah.
For whatever flaws I am what I am, and I'm very
Mhm.
self-aware. And I think you're very self-aware, right? And you have to live within that, because I used to tell people, I remember, after we won state, I got invited to speak at a couple of clinics. And one thing I used to always mention to all the young coaches was, do yourself a favor and coach like you coach. Decide what you want to coach, but coach how you coach. I said, because I grew up in the Midwest in the 70s and 80s, and there was a bunch of crazy high school coaches who suddenly bought checkered jackets and started throwing chairs, because that's how he won.
That's how he did
They
it.
won in spite of that. They didn't win because of that.
Mm.
So, please. And, the other thing too is, like, I used to always go to clinics, and to me, it was one of two things. You could always learn something, though as the years pass, you learn less, because there's an asymptote to learning. And on the other hand, it reaffirms what you're doing. If I'm doing it, I remember when we first started playing matchup zone, I used to not play zone because zone was for sissies. And I would use a lot harsher word if I didn't respect you so hard, because that's what sissies do. They stand around a guarded piece of wood and they look like a statue.
Yep.
So what happened was, I believe in changing tempo of game, but you got to be careful changing tempo by extending pressure. Because if you overextend pressure, all you're doing is turning it into a layup drill, right? I mean, you got to run good pressure, not just pressure. So what I started doing was saying, okay, if you want to change tempo, you can change tempo between man and matchup, just like you can change tempo by going man to extended man, right? And I found it to be unbelievably successful. So I went to a clinic one time and I saw Jim Boeheim. Well, they run that 2-3 matchup zone. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I said, okay, I'll go listen to this guy. So I walked in and he says, basically, we try at all costs to keep our bottom defenders, our defensive forwards down, because if they pop out to guard wings, the balls go to the short corner.
Yeah, you're exposed.
Yep. It's lob dunk city. It's just, it's too easy for words. Okay. So one thing I would encourage all coaches to do is to kind of explore things, because what I found out the hard way, and it helped us win a state championship, was you have to, you've got to be open-minded enough to look at different things, because a lot of times there's a front-end benefit and then a lot of times there's a back-end benefit. Okay, so the front-end benefit of us adding matchup zones to our repertoire was, okay, now we can change tempo a little bit. But the back-end benefit, since we ran 10 or 15 minutes of matchup period during practice, guess what? We started doing better. We attacked the crap out of a zone. So when we had a great team that nobody could match up with, so they all babied out by playing zone against us. We had Joe Fultz, Eric Zastapil, Lawrence Mann playing, middle of the forearm over the rim. This is silly. And then you got John bombing from the outside. Are you sure you want to keep playing zone? So that the reason I tell that story is kind of long-winded was, I can't change the fact I'm fiery. I'm not going to suddenly roll up my program and cross my legs like John Wooden, because they think Inman's dead. What's wrong with them, right? But I can, no matter how accomplished I am or I am not, I'm at least open-minded enough to try to learn, because I really learn a lot. Because I even refuse to say the Z word. The Z word is like the F word. Some people don't say certain words. The Z word, zone, because zone implies I'm guarding a piece of wood.
Yeah.
I call matchup. Do push-ups, you say zone, because that's what sissies run. Matchup is aggressive, playing a man in an area kind of thing. And so when I speak at clinics, I tell them, stay true to yourself, your personality. You can always add to your repertoire, because you have to. Because if you don't, the day you think you figured it out, or the day you think you're going to reinvent the game, man, just check yourself, because you'll be another one of the old guys talking about coulda, woulda, shoulda. No one's going to want to hear it.
Man, there's so much gold right there. And one takeaway from me was, continue to go to clinics. And even if it's somebody that you feel like from the outside, I know what they're about to talk about. There's probably not much in this for me, but have that growth mindset still. Try to see if there's one thing that you can get, because there might be a nugget or an idea that unlocks something in your brain that could really transform your program. But I ran into that, especially at McKinney, when Wes Watson and I, the great Wes Watson, we started to press and run dribble drive exclusively. That mindset of, this is the only way to play, started to creep into where, what's he talking about? A 2-3 zone? All right, I'm going to go eat. I would just check out. And I became really arrogant with that. But then, kind of like you, I'm at Grapevine Faith, 5'8", TAPS Christian school, great kids, but not necessarily sometimes the biggest or most athletic. We went to a matchup 3-2 2.5 years ago, and it has completely transformed what how we play, because like you said, we can still be aggressive like I want, but we're not giving up the things that in a pressure man that we were giving up. But to your point, I just awesome hearing that from you.
Well, and it's funny because another thing I encourage you to do when it comes to clinics is be open-minded, because I'll tell a comparison contrast, and I'm not trying to say on the extreme end that I'm right, but I've gone to listen to high school coaches. I've gone to listen to lady coaches. I've gone to listen to small school coaches and learned a lot. On the other hand, I remember one time we were in Las Vegas with some guys, and I saw Roy Williams. And I like Roy. He's a nice guy. Oh, dad gum, shucks, aw shucks, golly, dad gum, and all that crap. And I think the teams are soft. I've always thought they were soft. I don't really respect soft basketball because I'm from the Big Ten, where my favorite style of play is I went to a fist fight and a basketball game broke out. I like it to be a mess. I want it to be a mess, right? So I'm listening to Roy, and he's talking about their defensive principles. Okay, it's cool. I'll listen. Can't be that different than anyone else, but I'll listen because I'm respectful. But we play them, on the ball, try to keep an active count, push them. We can. Okay, check. We play up the line. We play up in the passing lane depending on what our strategy is. More or less trying to deny all entries, force a backcut. Okay, check, no problem. We don't play behind the post. Okay, no problem at all. We don't believe in that either. But dadgummit, in North Carolina, we just don't believe in chucking cutters. And my mouth just dropped, and I said, "This dude, I blasted him." That's not the point. My point is not that I'm arrogant. I'm better than Roy Williams, but to me, that's extraordinarily soft basketball. So I'm not going to listen to you tell me to stop chucking, because if you try to cross the cross your face mindset.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're stronger than me. Okay. So you're here and I'm not letting you come across my face, because that's
there's a personal pride involved with that, in my opinion. I will not allow them to go exactly where they want to go.
I'm allowing you to go where I allow you to go. Yeah. And that's just the way it has to be. So my point is, I could have sit there and said, well, since Roy Williams said it, dadgummit, he's got rings. Well, Roy Williams has got a bench full of McDonald's All-Americans, and he always had $3 million slush fund to buy him. So let's not act like that's so special. But at the end of the day, my point being, you can learn something from somebody maybe you've never heard of, and don't buy into the glitz of saying that just because Bobby chunks chairs and wears jackets that I can do the same thing. Or if you believe in chucking cutters and Roy Williams says don't stop chucking cutters because he told you. Because
that's such a great point. Yeah, such a good point.
There's got to be some point in the game when players have some, like you have some resolve. You just Phil Jackson was famous for not calling timeout. You just need to learn to work through this crap.
Yeah.
I can't save you through everything. And then that's
especially early on in the season, allowing your teams to sometimes fail. We got down 18-4, 18-4 the first quarter this past year, and it wasn't a district game, and I wanted them to, like you said, learn how do you stay present in every possession, not look at the scoreboard, slowly chip away at this thing, dig deep, find another level, another depth. But somebody on our bench, and I think it was actually an assistant coach that was of our junior high, he's off the floor. He yells, "Timeout." And I heard it, and I whipped my eyes down to see who would dare say that or suggest that. Because in my mind, this was a time where I'm not going to just rescue you. And we ended up winning by 10. And by the end of the first quarter, we were down 6, not bad from where we were. End up going up going up at the half. So I don't know. Just told that story right on. But you're right on the money with that stuff.
Oh no, it's good to be able to trust your guys. I remember one time we were playing up at Marcus, right? This was before Marcus Smart was up there, right? And we were playing those guys. And there was a lady in there that just absolutely hated me and Joe Fultz. I don't know what it was, but she just it was Bill Lamb's wife, the lady guy who does the play-by-play for the San Antonio Spurs, and she was just mean as a rattlesnake. So anyway, it was really funny because we used to run spread. I don't know if you remember, we used to run a spread where we'd run 2 guards, 3 guards up top, and 2 bigs, right? And we're always trying to get to the middle. And if we can force help up, we're lobbing for it, right? So I used to love to run this because we would spread to score, not spread to stall, spread to attack, right? So we're doing this, and I just see John. I just give him this fist, just spread. He does it on his own. He kind of gets everyone's right spot. We run it down to about 4 seconds. He goes to the middle and throws Joe Fultz a lob. Oh. And Joe's like Gumby. I don't know if you remember Joseph very well, but he's 6'7" with 43-inch sleeves. Just ridiculous. I mean, he could pick his own pocket going over his shoulder. That's how long his dang arms are, right? And so anyway, he throws this lob. Boom! The place goes nuts and everything. And I just look at the lady. She's pissed. And I look at her. I just kind of winked. And the reason I tell the story was because I told John, I said, you're going to have to be able to do that one day because I can't always call a timeout. And I said, there's one day going to be a gym you can't hear my obnoxious voice, and you're going to have to be able to do that yourself. So, if you think back to the times that you did and didn't handle it very well in high school and college level, and what you really hope is you just hope that that there's a growth period. Because I used to always kind of look at it like, if we saw something in a game that I never showed my team in practice, that's on me, not them, right? But as the season goes on, you should have over the course of time, you should more or less see there's only so many things you can do on a basketball court. I mean, so you'd like to think that over the course of time that you're going to keep getting better. But that goes to things like not being a front runner. One of your questions was, how do you handle defeat? And I was famous for saying, like, let's say it was a heartbreaker. I say, you guys, we didn't lose that game. We just ran out of time. So, or you get beat by 20. Guys, we're not here to cover the point spread. If you won by 3, would you feel better about this? Shut up, man. You got your butt kicked. Moving on. Next play. If you're always asking next play in practice, shouldn't you be saying next quarter in a game? Shouldn't you be saying next game in a week? Should you be saying next? You got to kind of move forward and show some resilience. Because I was asking John before I went over to France, I said, John, what's your coach like? And he said, he's a lot like you and Beard, because me and Chris Beard are real similar. We'll crawl your rear end, but we don't create fake drama. And that's what he was saying. His guy over there, who's a Finnish guy from Finland, does the same thing. He says, but it does unnerve me a little bit, because where he's chill at practice, he'll kind of flip out in games, where you and Beard are the other way. You and Beard are crawling us in practice, and then in a game, you kind of let it go. And I think it behooves you to remember what it was like to be a player. As a coach, it behooves you to remember that you better have a varsity voice, a super varsity voice for the big crowded gyms, that you better have a JV voice where you don't want to embarrass the kid, because you don't want to do that because you're a decent guy. You don't want to do it because you'll hear from his mom and dad tomorrow. Just having that I don't know, humility, I guess. I remember, here's a good story. We're sitting there on the bench, and I'm the assistant coach at Plano. We were really good in the mid-90s, right? From about 92 to about 98, we're really good. We had a really good team. We're playing Carter one time, right? Guy missed a free throw. That's all right, man. That's all right. Missed another free throw. Come on, let's go. So guy comes up, missed a couple free throws. Come on, man. Come on, somebody make a free throw. By about the 5th or 6th one, come on, man. Somebody go make a free throw. Stan Hicks looks at me. He's the bad cop. I'm the good cop. Normally, we switch roles. And he goes, Coach, they ain't trying to miss.
That's a great point.
You idiot. You're a basketball player your whole life. You hate people who do just what you did.
Exactly.
So stop honking at people who drive like you do. Stop being a hypocrite. And then that's another thing. You got to have a little bit of that, because if all you had to do to win basketball games was want to, well, I'd have rings on my fingers and rings on my toes and pierce through my nose. I mean, give me a break. Come on. So it's ridiculous. Well, that goes to the arrogance of basketball. I'm watching the Showtime. There's a thing about the LA Lakers, and it's got kind of hammered because they made Jerry West look like a maniac. They're talking about different types of things where you go through these growth periods, and every team has to have it. I'm sure you can tell a high school story about somebody having to square off on one of your teammates. You had a couple prickly teammates, you don't talk about, they had to be squared off on. You might have been the one that did it. More than likely.
Coach, I'm pretty sure at the Colony, Texas, I was not squaring off, but there's a way to do that. And I mean, we've kind of alluded to it also. There's a way to do that with having more of a powerful presence, but even in a positive way.
The veterans you the right to say it because you have a powerful presence. Because Matt Riccardi is my guy that works for the Brooklyn Nets. And I'll tell a story that remember a guy named Abdul Lawal? We called him Bull, great big thick Nigerian guy that played guard for me at Plano. He was a monster. Best defensive player I've ever seen. Not, usually you talk about the best I've ever seen was playing for someone else. He played for me. This guy was a monster, but he was a pain in the butt, and he'd be a real butthole to his teammates, right? And so Matt never played very much, and I'm real honest with my players. I tell them, listen, I'm not going to play to keep people happy. We play to win, and we see how the chips fall. That's how it's got to be, and you got to be able to kind of live with that. I want you to keep wanting to play. I want you to keep working hard, but I'm not going to make you false promises. So I come in one day, and they're in the gym, and Matt's just F-bombing him. He goes, oh, I'm so effing sick and effing tired of you whining about all this crap. He goes, I do every single thing the coach asks me to do. You do as little as you could possibly get away with. You play all the time. I don't play. All you do is whine. Man, why don't you shut up? And I was like, attaboy. Attaboy, you get that. Because I can't do all that.
Right.
Someone's got to do that. But he had that presence, like you said. And again, I'm not expecting you to tell a story about you squaring off on one of your guys. Nothing. That's not the point. But the point is, you earn the right by showing up every day.
Yeah.
You do. You really do earn the right by showing up every day. I was watching that Magic show, and at the end, there was a guy, one of the veterans, I think it was supposed to be Kermit Washington, was really treating him like a dog, and he did something. At the end, he'd been kind of taking it as a rookie. And at the end, he finally just hit him and punched him in the mouth and said, I'm not your girl. A different word. We left it at that because that's one of the delicate things. How do you handle the uprising on a team? That's a difficult thing, and that's why sometimes I would encourage coaches to schedule up, because you'll find out what your team's made of when you lose a game or two. Because most people have to shut up when you win. The guy who ain't playing is probably not saying much when you're winning, when you're 13-0. But if you're 8-5, now you find out who's stabbing you in the back, because, and I've had people say, well, Coach, why can't I play? We're losing. I said, well, because Billy's still better than you. If you played for him, we'd be losing by more. What do you want me to tell you? Is that what you want? The truth? Hey, another thing about telling the truth, there's a funny story, was when Robertson moved into Plano, my rising senior point guard was a kid named Corbin Bone, okay? And he ended up being the Gatorade Soccer Player of the Year in Texas his senior year. He went to Wake Forest. They won a national championship. And he was a really good guard, but he wasn't John. So I called him in one day and I said, Corbin, come here, man. I said, listen, here's the deal. I said, you're a good point guard. John's a great point guard. I'm not going to play you to keep you happy. It's going to drive you crazy. It's going to drive me crazy. It's going to drive your back crap crazy dad crazy. We're all going to be in a mess. And I said, and you're never going to make $1 with basketball. You're going to make some money with soccer. I said, so you might hate me right now, but I'm going to let you go. Right. So the reason I tell the story was he goes Gatorade Player of the Year, goes to Wake Forest, goes number 5 in the MLS draft. Right. And one day someone said, who's your favorite coach at Plano? And he said, Inman. I said, how could it be Inman? He never coached you. And he said, because he told me the truth.
Wow.
And, there's a lot to be said for telling the truth. And we could all come up with a corny little story, but when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember the lie. When you tell the truth, Matt cut a guy with the G League. He brings him in, he's releasing this guy, and he says, look, man, I can tell you the truth now, and you can hate me for a while and respect me down the road, or I can tell you what you want to hear, and you'll like me for a while, and you'll know I'm soft down the road. I'll get caught in my own web of lies. So I'm a stand-up guy, and I tell the truth. So this is where we're at. And finding a way to delicately say that. I don't know if people can tell the difference in my voice, because I don't enjoy cutting a guy. I don't enjoy telling a kid you're not going to play. I don't enjoy any of that stuff. But I think a coach who's honest with those players and tells them the truth will get a lot further than telling people what they want to hear. Because if all you had to do to get what you want was to work hard, then I would own the Bulls, and I would have married Halle Berry 25 years ago, and I would have my own private helicopter. Okay, well, none of that happened.
Man.
None of that happened. So you get over. That goes back to everyone who wins the Preakness is usually riding a thoroughbred, not a mule. With the advice I gave you back however many years ago that was. So, and I think that's why coaching's hard, because it's that delicate balance. I'm watching a show called Ted Lasso. You know anything about it?
Love it. Oh, love it.
I just started watching.
Goldfish mentality, Coach.
I just started watching this thing, and I can already see, because he's kind of a dork, but I'm kind of a dork, and that's cool. But he gets that stuff. Like I would have done so many of those little things he did. Like when he pulls up the guy and he says, look, I'm pretty sure that over the course of time, you convince yourself that you're 1 in a million, but you got to keep remembering you're only 1 out of 11 out there. And I liked his approach, because I would have been harder. I would have gone a little Irish on him. I'd have gone a little.
His approach is more appropriate for today's players, because
I hate to say
you almost
have to soft coach. You almost have to soft coach. You can't.
The art of telling the truth. While you were talking before, I thought about this PGC principle, TIPI, and it's a temporary inconvenience for a permanent improvement. And we can't forget as coaches to continue to do the inconvenient things, the inconvenient truth, to say those. But the hope is never, like you said, never to degrade or to steal joy from a kid, but also that we want permanent improvement from them. And from being an adult and going through things in life, that our biggest growth opportunities usually come from the tough times, not when everything is going great.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
All of these ideas and thoughts that you have, and I even like when you're talking about Ted Lasso, all the little things that he does, and how are those things that you learned along the way? Or I hate to say it, like, are you, when I say special, unique, like, in any field, and we call them, like right now in the NBA, they call them unicorns, right? The people that are kind of outliers in the way they think and the way that, I mean, is that you, or is this?
I got lucky. I'm a natural contrarian. I don't like to do what other people do. I don't like to be weird, but I like to be different. And I don't care that bothers anyone. That only makes it more fun. So it's easy. Like, for instance, here's a great question. If you asked 100 coaches to answer this question, if you were on an 8-game winning streak or an 8-game losing streak, under which circumstance would you be the bigger butthole? Okay, ask yourself that question. What's your answer?
Now, do I have to choose both, or can I give a
follow-up? No, either one or the other.
All right. Well, I'll start by, naturally, I think the down 8, especially when I was starting out. But I think the question that I'd follow up with.
Oh, you're saying how would it morph as you change as a coach? You're talking about change.
I've changed. Now. I think my natural tendency, like if I couldn't control it would be to be frustrated with the losing and to be a butthole when I'm like that. Everybody, for the most, like you alluded to, parents, players, everybody's happier when there's winnings. But there is a way that you can win but still be frustrated because you don't feel like you're getting better. And there's a way that you can lose and be not okay with it, but excited about the direction that you're heading.
See, that's why. So you pretty much answered like the normal people answer, because you're normal, and
right,
like I answered because I'm the other 10%. And see, to me, I'm not saying I enjoy the losing, but I'm a natural contrarian. So when we're winning a lot, I go, oh boy, here comes the slippage, because that's what happens.
Now, is that pessimist?
No.
Is that being a pessimist? Okay.
No, not at all. And then the other side is, it's easy to kick a kid when he's down. So I would always walk up to the best looking woman in a bar, and I would never tell her she was beautiful, because everyone's already told her that all day. I'll make you laugh. Maybe you'll remember that. Right. Okay. So I don't know how I drifted off of that.
That's good advice, though. It's good advice.
I mean, don't fawn over people. But I mean, there's just something to be said for just, having the presence of mind, I guess, in asking yourself, like, I'm very reflexive. Like, a lot of times, even though I seem like I don't think what I say about what I say, I'll say to myself, if I say this, what's my downside? And it might be a split second. How would I receive what I'm about to say? Well, maybe that would change the way I'd say it. Maybe that would change what I say, or if I say it. Right. But I do. So when I'm losing, I'm thinking, okay, everyone else wants to be a butt. I'm not going to be a butt. I'll make them figure that out. I'll stay positive through the middle of it. Now, in the middle of the 5th and 6th game, when I start seeing a little bit of slippage, 2%, 3%, and I know where we're going, right? Going back, we're taking the bell curve right back down to mediocrity, because I know the bell curve. I've ridden that damn thing for 31 years, right? And the trick is to stay on the left side rising, not on the right side dropping, right or wrong? Yeah. And so I'm getting long-winded on the answer, but because I'm a natural contrarian, I kind of almost welcome it, because at 8-5, the year you win state, you're 8-5. All your critics are hammering it. That's okay. Bring it on. Because if I had thin skin, I wouldn't be doing this for a living. And all you're really doing is showing me who my real enemies are anyway, which is fine, because unless you can get me fired, what do I care if you approve of me or not? I don't care if that lady at Marcus liked me. I don't care if the clowns at Plano West. None of it matters. It doesn't matter. Yet your players have to matter.
One of my favorite Christian rappers is his name's Trip. At Grapevine Faith, I've learned. I mean, I didn't even know about Christian rap before I came here. I didn't know even that was even a thing. And now I know them all. But Trip Lee, he said, trophies don't go to the ones that have a good beginning. And I think that's difficult as a coach. You want to start the year off well, and then the majority of us want the year to continue to go well, and you want the season to end well. But the truth is, it rarely ends well if you're not going through some adversity, that 8-5 early on. And how many times, if we are in control of the scheduling, how many times are we handicapping the potential of our teams because we're not throwing them in the fire enough early on?
Well, without making it, personal, but the classic example is what Plano went through this last year. It has nothing to do with the fact that I used to be there. But at 5-0, you're happy. At 10-0, it's cool. At 15-0, you're stoked. At 20-0, are you starting to get nervous? Because that's back to my pessimism of slippage. Yeah. Because I'm a big believer that steel sharp, as one,
iron sharpens iron. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And the bottom line is there's a tendency to slip because the little things you did to make yourself extraordinary are the little things that when you stop doing them, they make you ordinary. And then you're riding the bell curve down to mediocrity. And then you're on the bottom making excuses. I used to always tell my guys, I said, look, man, there's whatever the number would be that year. There's 300 6A, 5A, it was 5A at that point. There's 300 5A schools in Texas. Okay. All 300 people are going to cry at the end of the year. 299 are going to cry tears of this sucks. And one team's going to be lucky and cry happy tears, but we're all going to cry. So are you wanting to end the season for everything that we've worked for because you were too stubborn to acknowledge that November's mistakes have to end on December 1st? And December mistakes have to end on January 1st. And January mistakes have to end on February 1st. If you're not willing to, accept that burden, then either don't play or sit on the bench and watch someone try harder than you. That's just how it is. Because, you got to go out and do this one time. Go make a list of everybody you ever played against in high school that went to the – don't do college because college is a merger of other states. But leave it at your coaching experience and your playing experience, right? Make a list of everyone you played against, your coach against who plays the NBA. Played in the NBA. I got 60 guys on this list. And that's not some big time. It's because Dallas basketball is really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Texas basketball is crazy good now.
Just get into the Final Four. If you make it to the Final Four in any classification, but especially the big ones, that basically means you're the king of Houston, you're the king of Dallas, you're the king of San Antonio, and you're the king of Pig's Knuckle, Texas, whatever. But my bad. Sorry for all the people who live in Pig's Knuckle, Texas. But you know what I'm saying? Pretty much you're the urban champ.
Yeah.
They should build a statue at your school just for winning your region.
Well, Tommy Thomas is one of, you and I are good friends, but he's a mentor of mine. And
I love Tommy.
He got down there one time with all of those teams that he had and the talent he had. He made it to that round, that one time. And yeah, it shows how hard it is. And then a great reminder too of enjoying the journey. And not getting so fixated on what's next. If you are fortunate enough to get there, reflect back on how hard it was and how many players helped you get to that point, but then enjoy it like Wes Watson did this year. What an incredible run.
Oh yeah, he really did enjoy it. Hey, did you ever see the movie Cool Runnings?
Oh yeah.
Oh, peace be the journey, man. Enjoy the journey, man. But there's something to be said for here, I'll give you my mom was famous for corny little one-liners. That's why I get them all right. And she used to always say, involve yourself in the precious present because the past is history. Tomorrow's a mystery, but the precious present, live in the moment. And it's really hard for me. I've told people that there's a song called Back in the High Life by Stevie Winwood. And it talks about a guy who things happen so fast that he had to slow life down to enjoy them. And I kind of, I sort of felt that way. And I'm happier now, retired. I love basketball, but it's just easier to be peaceful, and to enjoy the moment because sometimes I was so busy worrying about what was happening next. I wasn't sitting there just saying, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like every time, do you ever catch yourself just sitting in a gym sometimes and say, it's pretty cool, man. Somebody pays me to do this crap. Or
now,
Matt Saman, Matt Saman from the colony.
Yeah.
Tommy Inman from Ottawa, Illinois. That little rat, that little knucklehead from down the street. Can you believe that it's just kind of cool, man. Like somebody sent me a picture when we were at state. Somebody took the coolest picture and they sent them to me on an email. And it's a shot and it shows all right, the basket, then Nick Wise, and behind me is Nick Wise. Or I'm behind Nick Wise, so I'm right on the shot line. And this guy shoots it from a little different angle and shows my mom, my aunt, Thomas Hill, my old buddy, the guy who played at Duke. We've been friends forever and ever. Two of my high school teammates, just all right there. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, man. Because I grew up in this ratty little factory town, like a Youngstown, Ohio kind of place, And people from my town, my town just don't get chances like that. In fact, another thing, was a funny story. When we get ready to go to state, I got a call from this guy on Sunday, and he was doing a newspaper article, for the Dallas Morning News. And he said, we talked about this and that. And he finally said, what do you say to the Barry Switzer comment that he said you got to go to a championship twice to win it once? And I said, pardon my language. I said, it sounds like Barry got his ass kicked the first time, huh? Because that's what you said. So the guy says when he lost the first time and won the second time. So he kind of took it like I was being a little cocky. He said, so you think you can win it? And I said, you think I can't? And I went back to what he said. And then I said, guys from Ottawa, Illinois don't get two chances. We don't get two. You get one chance. And I really, I have to say, I really enjoyed that week. I totally slowed down. and said, we probably won't win this because, how hard is it? You know what our margin was down there? We won by 2 in overtime, and we won by either 1 or 3 the night before. I mean, 2 possessions in 2 nights. So the 3 other teams that lost, what did they lose by? 2 possessions in 2 nights, right? There's not much margin. And so, you really got to enjoy it. Because if you're not careful, you look back and then you start to become one of those old, coulda, woulda, shoulda back in the day guy. I am not that dude. I'm never going to be that guy because that would embarrass me.
How do you have because I think it's such an easy pitfall to fall into where the wins and losses, playoff runs, state championships, we start to measure ourselves by that, or that horrible trap of comparison comes in. Why am I not as good as them? How do you stay confident, grateful, content where you're at while striving to do great things?
Well, see, I got a good weird answer because I'm the weird guy. But see, most people would say that whatever I'm about to answer would be, well, that's because you won. It was easy because you won at 43. So now the rest of the time you can kind of coast and take it easy. And I've always told people, number one, if anybody who thinks that we should be judged fairly by whether we do or don't win a state championship is an idiot, a complete idiot. And then I can think of 3 coaches. Let's go with schools that have had a checkered recruiting past. Okay, let's talk about Kimball. Let's talk about Duncanville, and let's talk about Marcus, Flower Mound Marcus. Okay, do the ends justify the means? Because one of these guys is the legendary coach of Texas. No, you've cheated every single place you've gone. You have every single. I'm not saying that. You know what I'm talking about. Every single place he's gone. Well, if you care that much about winning, I don't care. I'm not selling my soul. I'm just not doing it. So again, it's easy for you to say, well, you don't have to sell your soul because you won at 43, so you could retire at 55. I would have retired at 55 anyway. I saw Rick Shirley I was down there at the state tournament the last year when I was getting ready to retire, right? And I saw Rick. I've known him forever. I used to work with his brother. Rick, hey, Tom, what you doing, bud? That raspy old boss. Man, I'm tired of this BS. I'm getting out of this crap. I'm sick and tired of the tail wagging the dog. I hate football coaches. I'm sick of superintendents. I can't wait to tell the whole world to kiss my butt. Man, Tom, y'all to stick around a couple more years. You could be out here getting 1, 3, 4, 5 in the ring. I said, Rick, I don't even know how many games I've won, but I put my ring on my middle finger. I said, but I know the one I did, and I just walked. I love Rick, but I don't measure myself by that, and I think it's shallow. I bet 10 different guys who are millionaires, right? And let's talk about a bell curve. Of those 10 guys, probably 2 of them never say a word. Probably 2 of them never shut up. And everything else is some shade of gray in between, more than likely, right? I think it reflects poorly on you. It reflects poorly on you. You have to have everything be measured. So is that any comfort to a guy who doesn't win state? Most people don't win state. Give me a break, man. I'm almost embarrassed because people would say like, you're this and that. It's like, man, I know so many coaches that are so much better. Tommy Thomas being better. Just right off the top, Stan Hicks was better than me. Tommy Thomas was better than me. Ron Powell was better than me. Joe Rushing was better than me. I mean, I could go on and on and on with a bunch of guys that, never won state, right? And so that makes me feel awkward in a way because I got survivor's guilt. And then for the people who say, well, hell, you should have won. You had all these players. I said, well, every championship team's got great players, but every team with great players don't win championships. Go ask LeBron.
Yeah.
Those walking robots he's got out in LA,
Well, he's been there a ton, but he hasn't won it. I mean, he's won it less than he's been there, which it's awesome that he's got there. But that's the LeBron Jordan comparison.
Can I have one epic rant? I'll do it in 30 seconds.
Well, you can go longer than 30 seconds.
Okay. Anybody out there that ever wants to compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James needs to just shut up. Okay. You're embarrassing yourself. It's a matter of facts. Michael, 6 finals, 6 rings, 6 MVPs, never went to a game 7, never picked his teammates, got the living crap beat out of him by the Detroit Pistons, hated his general manager, hated his owner, and fought through it all. LeBron James has been to 10. LeBron James has won 3. LeBron James is a passive-aggressive king of not telling what he's really doing. He's been the general manager of every single one of those teams. He's a coach killer from hell. And the biggest difference is LeBron wants everyone to like him, and Michael don't give a damn if you don't like him. End of the drop the mic. Shut up, young people.
Watch Last Dance, and you'll know that for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's really sad is somebody said something to me one time, and it applies to Michael Jordan. He said, if you're over 50 and all your friends are people you pay, you ain't got no friends. Well, does Michael have buddies? He goes out and shoots pool with and plays golf? No,
Man.
he doesn't. They call him, I grew up in Chicago, right? That's where I'm from, right? You know what they call him and Pippen up there? They've had nicknames for 30 years. Michael Jordan's nickname is America's guest because he doesn't pay for anything. Michael Jordan's presence is your gift. You pay for it. Right? That which is arrogant and dismissive and condescending on epic levels. And Scottie Pippen's country, but they call him No Tippin' Pippen. That's the truth. I know people got stiff. Scottie Pippen come in with a $100 bill and leave $2. So, I mean, I don't know. Go back to the comparison. I think Michael Jordan's a lesser person. You don't remember his famous line? What Michael Jordan said one time when Horace Grant calls him up and says, I want you to endorse this guy. He's a black guy running for office down in South Carolina. Mike says, no, I can't do it. Horace thought he was kidding. He said, come on, man, Mike, I need you to do this. He goes, I can't do it. What are you talking about? He goes, Republicans buy shoes too.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
How many more shoes did he need to sell for his life to be comfortable, right? So
see, you're right on the money, though. I wish people would stop comparing those two. And also, we're all sinners. We all have issues and baggage. But I wish we'd start to look at the positives a little bit more, like about a LeBron. And all of the positives, the fact that in his 19-year career, I can't really think of a huge scandal outside of basketball that he's been a part of.
Right. And a tremendous husband, a tremendous father, all that. Yeah. No, and let me go back and clarify for anyone who just heard that little rant. I'm only talking basketball.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. I completely agree with everything you said basketball wise about him. There's this great article that I show to my players every few years. It just kind of comes up in my mind, but it says it's called "Do You Still Want to Be Like Mike?" And it's an interview of an older Michael Jordan just talking about how he can't turn the competitive part off. He is just empty, and this drive to just be excellent at any cost is. He's like, I don't know what to do with it. And
well, what it is? It was the fuel. It was the fuel that got him 6 rings, and it's the poison that's eating him up from inside.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He talked about gambling and how, I mean, I was at a casino in Tahoe years ago. Got to walk by a table where he was sitting, and you mentioned the presence. You just see him walking around. And you like, golly, there's something different about that dude. If I didn't know who he was, I'd think, who is it? And
whatever he does for a living, he does it at a high level.
Yeah, but he's sitting there by himself with a 12-inch cigar, playing 6 hands of blackjack at one time. And I did the math real quick. Every hand was more than I make in a year. Every hand, and he's playing them all by himself at his own table in a crowded room of other people. It's just
like a fish in a fishbowl, right?
Yeah.
Well, and ask yourself, would you rather be the guy that? I mean, entourages are kind of goofy and tacky when you have all your homeboys hanging out with you, but at least you got homeboys. Or Jordans, So back to clarify, LeBron would be a much happier post retiree, than Michael's going through the classic athlete midlife crisis kind of thing. But it goes back to one thing: you reap what you sow. When you treat everyone bad, I mean, and the thing about it is, like, there are times I would challenge a guy. You get kind of edgy and nasty, but I would always work it out that day. You always say, don't go to bed angry with your wife. Well, don't leave the gym pissed off just to see how it works out. And Jordan just never cared. So anyone who thinks they can yell and scream their teammates in and win a championship, shut up, because Jordan had a lot to do with it, but a lot of other things had a lot to do with it.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. That competitive fire that, I mean, you obviously have, you can just hear it in the way you talk about the game and coaching. And when you were right in the middle of it. How did you balance the competitive fire? You're competing your team versus theirs, but also yourself versus the other guy over there. But how did you balance that with still the coaching fraternity and the relationships that I think are so special that we build by doing this? What was that balance like for you?
I always thought it was pretty easy because as long as a guy wasn't an ass on the other end, I'm cussing my players or being disrespectful or pressing up 60 with 8, just ridiculous things, then I always felt like that he's a non-issue. My issue is me and my issue is my team. I don't care that much about them. And at the end of the day, I cared about the relationship because everyone knows that I'm a very fiery person, but I'm not disrespectful to the other coach for any reason. And I'm always going to walk the line at the end. I'm always going to shake hands, and I'm always going to congratulate you unequivocally. I'm not going to come down whining. Oh, refs suck tonight. Huh, Matt? Oh, man. Yeah, well, nice game, Matt. Refs blew. And I'm not doing that because that's really, really rude. And because I know I'm a little bit of a polarizing type of a person, I like throwing you off by being really humble because from a distance, I always tell people, there's 30 frames of video in a second, right? There's 30 snapshots per se, right? And if you judge anybody by the snapshot of their life, you're probably not being fair because my best snapshot, I'm Mother Teresa, and my worst one, I'm Attila the Hun. Mm-hmm. Well, if you level it out by watching the whole video, and I know from a distance I can be that person, I like throwing you off because I am a respectful person. And I think you should care about your reputation because you only have one. Yeah. You only got one name. And there are people out there that don't like me, but it was very highly unlikely that it was just because I don't care what you think of me. So I just went off. It was probably because, like me, well, that's okay. I mean, didn't you learn that as a basketball player? You can't make everyone happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an important lesson you got to learn, especially your coaches. You can't, Coach Bliss played me 40 minutes against TCU 1 week later, 47 seconds against SMU. And I did nothing wrong in that week to change that, have that dramatic of a change in playing time. Right. And I had to make the choice. I mean, this was as a college player of, while I care what he thinks, I'm also not going to try to understand every decision he makes because I'll end up going crazy. I'm just going to have to worry about staying consistent and working hard.
Right. Well, and I always tell people, I said, Tony Romo would be an unemployed truck driver back in Charleston, Illinois, if he hadn't been, when he had his hat on backwards, some gruff guy from New Jersey goes, Romo, get your ass out there. And he was ready to go.
Yeah.
When preparation meets opportunity, that's where success happens. So you got to prepare yourself for it, but you got to be ready when the opportunity comes because you don't get that many of them. And that goes back to my story about when I said, he goes, you think you can win? And I said, you think I can't? And I didn't mean to be arrogant, but you don't get, and what I said to him was, I said, the likelihood is I'll probably never get a chance to go back again. Well, I didn't. Tommy went once. Joe Rushing, Tyrese Maxey, the kid that plays for the Sixers, right? Remember his father? You ever met his dad, Tyrone?
No.
Tyrone played in the DISD back in 88, 89, same time as Baron Brown and Thomas Hill. And I got my start in basketball in Dallas because they just opened up AAU basketball. In 1987, I started working at Oak Cliff, so I was working with these kids. And Tyrone Maxey, the father, made a half-court shot for Brian Adams. That was when it was Brian Adams and Kenyon Martin and all those guys were down there, Michael Jacks. And he hit a half-court shot to end Thomas Hill and Baron Brown's senior season. They were supposed to win state 3 years in a row. They were loaded. Well, they got there 1 year, and their point guard missed a couple of critical free throws, and that happens. Then the guy makes a half-court shot, and that happens. And, that's why you got to, the most hollow thing in the world is coulda, woulda, shoulda. And that's why I really encourage people. I don't watch a lot of video after we lose, unless like the last loss. I won't watch that.
The last one, yeah.
What are you getting from that besides pissed off that the refs blew the block charge again?
Yeah.
What you're going to do and go into the offseason with a grudge. I mean, to the extent, and that's why, like, I get on my wife about second guessing because I'm sure as a player and a coach, you just absolutely detest being second guessed because you got to live in the moment. You got to make a decision, right? And she goes, well, I'm not second guessing. I said, well, you kind of are because you're kind of talking about what I should have done. And I said, only to the degree that what you say to me will change my behavior the next time. That's the part I want you to make me review. The part about I'm an idiot because I should have done what you said after the fact because you had the benefit of hindsight, just shut up. And that goes to video. To the degree that this clip can make you a better player in the next game. Well, last game, just get over it. Win or lose, go eat dinner with your team. Don't act different when you lose than when you win. In fact, if you could think about this, if you're if you intentionally humbled down when you won, you intentionally kept it up when you lost, wouldn't you keep things a lot more balanced for your team? I mean, they're already psychotic teenagers. Jesus, they're already emotional basket cases to begin with, right? So you're going to make it harder by yelling and screaming when it's bad and gloating when you win, you know? So I always had I had a high school coach that I always kept a pretty good balance that way. I admire the guys that keep that balance that way. And again, it comes back, I'll still yell at the ref. I'm still a type A personality, but in the moment of, do I hammer his butt or I put my arm around him? Come on, man. He ain't trying to miss. Yeah. Coach, he ain't trying to miss that free throw.
That's a great reminder.
You know, and if the best you got is out there making a mistake, that's the best you got. It's the best you got. Right?
That's a good point. Question for you that I was thinking about. Mm-hmm. So you win at Plano, and then you take over years later. You take over Grand Prairie, and I think they were coming off of like a 0-26 year or something like that.
They went over, yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, coming from the success that you've had, taking over a program, not like some guys that take over and have some instant success because of others' work or stuff that a foundation that's already been there. Really, no foundation. What was that like?
Well, it was fun in the sense there was no pressure because Troy Matthews is the greatest athletic director in the history of high school basketball. And I love Troy Matthews. And Troy treats you like a college coach. He gives you resources because basically if he gives you resources, he takes away your excuses, right? Not that you're looking to make excuses, but the cheap AD says, do it in spite of all the things I'm going to say no to. And he says, okay, go do it because I'm going to say yes. So that was cool. Had a great gym. They welcomed me because, we'd won state and they were horrible. So that from that part I loved. I loved the parents didn't give me any help, but that was the saddest part because the parents were just very uninvolved in my players' lives. Socioeconomics were really bad as far as that goes. And so it was really hard. And I had to talking about self-awareness, I had to make sure I didn't come across as condescending to those kids. I never talked about Plano, never compared to those Plano kids. They don't need to hear that crap. They already know they suck. They already know that the 0-26 is about rock bottom, And I remember when we won our first game, it was funny, like second or third game, we won a game, and they're out there dogpiling. I look at Barron. I coached Barron when he was a junior in high school in the summer, right? I've known him forever. I said, Barron, this is kind of embarrassing. I said, but what the hell?
There's a purity, though, there. Like, there's a purity that in high school sports, you don't always get to see. And in that moment, I think you saw it.
Yeah. Well, it was cool because I always knew that no one was going to give me hell. I mean, like I said, the coolest thing about GP was part of the coolest thing was the parents didn't mess with me. And then probably the saddest thing was the parents didn't mess with me. I never had any conflict with as far as that went. But then in the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, I'm going to say something just straight up because he doesn't run you and he sure the hell don't run me. Charlie Brydup's a coward. He's an absolute coward because we all know back in the 90s, there was a school down Oak Cliff that got caught red-handed. He didn't do anything. Then we also know somebody got caught red-handed up in the white suburbs and they didn't do anything. And now we know someone down there on Highway 20, a little further east, they're cheating, ain't nobody doing anything. And then Charlie has the audacity to act like he clutches his pearls. Oh, an ex-offender, you reap what you sow. And it really sucks because there's a high school portal, dude. And that's undignified for a guy my age. And this is not ego talking. This is just a grown man versus kid talking. This is just, I'm not tail don't wag the dog talking. The idea, though, that I have to go recruit my own middle school kids, that I have to re-recruit my own players, that's ridiculous. And guess what? There are no attendance zones. It don't matter. You've heard so many crazy, stupid stories that come out of these recruiting factories. And what do they all call fall back on? He was being bullied or he feared for his safety. Right? And it's sad. It's sad because it's harder to coach the way you want to coach. And that's why you have to have players who trust you.
Yeah. And Jeff Clarkson had a great point. He's at Prestonwood now. And so even though we're both at private schools, the amazing thing that a lot of people don't know is that we're not allowed to recruit either. Like, we're not allowed to go out and reach out to people, find them, grab them, and induce them or entice them to come to our school for athletics. And the big difference is there truly is no zones. They can live anywhere and come to our schools.
Right. You're barred by your school from doing it. Not only that, but you'd have to account for the fact that you have to pay for the education. But think how easy it is to recruit public schools. Yeah, all you got to do is find a dumpy apartment address. You don't have to live in the apartment. Yeah. All you do is say you live in the apartment.
But
What,
Jeff,
Charlie's gonna come knock on your door? And I'm sorry if I'm being rude, but I have no respect for that because I watch too many guys work too hard. I mean, when Kate Cunningham left Bowie, one of my best friends is Alan Gratz. He's the guy that hired me after I got fired at Plano before I got the TP job, right? And him going to Montverde, that's a little different. I kind of get that part, but the idea that you're getting cherry picked from the moment. I mean, like when Lake Highlands lost this year in the playoffs, the first thing I said was, cynically, of course, because I'm Irish, I'm from Chicago, and dead people vote. So I looked at him, I said, the most difficult job for that coach in the offseason? And I said, what's that? I said, going to keep the assistant coach, Trey Johnson's dad, hired. Because everybody in town, let's go back to a little bit east on Highway 20, is going to offer the dude a job because the kid comes free. Okay, technically that's legal. All right, come on, man.
Yeah,
just all that.
I do. I like you though. I do love the purity of it kind of the way. I mean, it felt like at the Colony back in the day. Like we had grown up here. I mean, I did move down from Pennsylvania before my freshman year in high school to start at the Colony. But to Coach Thomas's credit, I was 5'3" with a flat top, size 13 shoe, not athletic. For him to have the foresight at that point to say this kid's going to be really good, like that would be incredible. He needed to go and
how much credit do you give Tommy Thomas for his development in you?
Yes,
his persistence. Because all those players didn't come to me as finished products. Probably the only one that I ever had that was pretty much a finished product, just stay out of the way, was John Robertson, and he was such a good kid. He let me coach him.
Yeah,
but the rest of those guys, they weren't finished products. You guys weren't either. And also think about this. Think if you could take the greatest work ethic of any teammate you ever had and put it into the most talented, lazy teammate you ever had and ask where he'd be today. Right. So, but which can you control? You can control your work ethic. You can't control your head. You can control how hard you worked, but you still had to have a guy who believed in you a little bit. And going back to compare the Colony to Plano, which, sit right next to each other virtually, is that there was a sense of community.
Yeah,
they were all kids who grew up.
And that's what's missing now, especially I feel like in DFW, the private school world. It's missing just because these kids don't live by each other. It's not a city that they're a part of. I'll tell you, one of the coolest places I ever felt like what we're talking about is in Iceland when I played for Njarðvík. The cool thing about that Icelandic league was it was little towns that just had a team named after their little town, and your teammates were the plumbers, the electrician, the teachers at the town that could also play. And then you went together, the whole town drove down 15 miles to the other. It was because I didn't even experience that as much at the Colony of everything. It's like Friday night football a little bit, but
shut down the store.
Yeah, but with basketball and where I'd go to the video store where they used to buy VHS tapes or rent VHS tapes or whatever or DVDs, and I go, and if we had won, man, like I could grab whatever I want for free. If we had lost, though, I could tell from those people like it was all my fault as the American. But my whole point, it is lost a little bit, but that's going, kind of full circle back to, and real quick to my point with Jeff Clarkson was, he said, good point, is you almost have to recruit your own players at this point.
Yeah.
Season's over. You have to recruit them.
I'm sorry. If you got a reason, if you got a problem, we should have already known about it, but we shouldn't be having exit interviews with every single returning player. So we can, what's next? Are we going to have to do an NIL package for every returning high school sophomore in case he doesn't make the varsity? We want to make sure he's a rich before he goes to college. Jesus Christ, come on, man, give me a break. And it's really, really frustrating because back to public school. So you have the disconnect with privates because the kids don't live in the neighborhood. But see, the problem now is what people don't realize is every time somebody goes off and cherry picks a kid and brings them in, he's replacing somebody, and that somebody is a local kid. So that's why usually the recruiters can't last long term because at some point
that's a good point. I haven't thought of that. Yeah, somebody's
getting. I used to always tell my players there's three numbers that are incontrovertible: 1, 5, and 160. There's one basketball. There will never be a second. There's 5 players. Never be a sixth. There's 160 minutes. And you guys got to figure out how to do that. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday is how you figure out how I split the pie on Tuesday and Friday. You figure that out with a little bit of game situation factored in. But for the most part, I love to play everybody. If I have a chance to play everybody, but there are guys, there are 30-30 guys. You know what 30-30 is, right? You only play when we're up 30 or down 30.
Yeah.
30. That's what you are, right? I had a kid that played on our state championship team. He's one of the founders of Dude Perfect. You know that crazy?
Yeah.
He's a millionaire. He's a gazillionaire. And his dad never liked me very much, right? And Cody's a nice kid, but wasn't a very good player. So one day his dad, about 2 years after we win state, walks up and tells me, "Hey, coach, I just want to let you know I forgave you." And I'm thinking inside, you pompous, pretentious idiot. Who are you to forgive me for anything? But of course I played along. What's that for? Oh, I just want to tell you, I forgave you for not playing Cody 1 minute in the state championship game. We were down 10 points at halftime to the defending state champs. We were down 7 at the end of the third quarter to the defending state champs. We had to go on the defensive run of all time and survive 6 missed free throws to win on the craziest missed shot in the history of the world. If you decided to play one possession, we wouldn't have a ring. And I just was, should I just really hear that? You know, but the crazy part was it was this like sort of predated what's going on now. It didn't bother the kid, it bothered the dad.
Yeah.
And that's what, and what really stinks is now that the inmates are running the asylum completely, factor in football coaches who probably aren't your biggest fan in the first place. Now you have pushy parents, and then that's amplified by this generation's a little worse. Now COVID, it's even worse. Now everything's political, and I can get everyone fired, and I can tell you what book to have in the library, and I can tell you what the curriculum is. So now every single conflict is somebody trying to hatchet your job. You know, and that's ridiculous. And I think if those parents would ever take a look at themselves, they'd be so ashamed.
I think
I've
that's where
fired in my life for something that happened on their job. Never, not once.
And I think that's where the peace of mind we have to take as coaches now is a few things just kind of rattle off in my head. One, you're never going to please everybody. And if you try to do that, you're going to be miserable. 2, winning is not the only thing, because you're hopefully building relationships that, like, and I can tell that you've already done with so many players, relationships that last. You're invited back to their wedding. You're teaching them life lessons through a game. That's really important. But then the last thing is winning better be what you're trying to do. Because I think when you try to please everybody and you think too much about playing little Timmy in the championship game because you want little Timmy to feel something, you actually are disrespecting the process and the hard work that all of those other players have put in. So it's been a journey for me, because I've even dabbled with some of those styles of play, like a Grinnell style, which is 5 in, 5 out. Everybody on the roster plays. There's like a purity and a piece of my heart that loves that, because it's a high school. I had a dad tell me one time, you know, does it really matter? It's 5A taps. It's high school. And I get that. Like, ESPN's not watching our games, but I kind of came back at him with, but we're also called to be excellent in what we do. And if winning is the goal, then every decision I make
has to be toward that.
Has to be towards that. Right.
Well, and the thing about it too is, I mean, do we want participation medals and orange slices? Because I don't. You know what makes me feel really good is like when I was going back and forth with John one day, and just kind of unsolicited, he says, "Coach, I just want to say thanks for always being around to give me and Joe and Bo and the guys good advice." You know, that kind of thing, because they don't have to say it. And it's easy to say, well, that's because he's your best player you ever had. And he was. Well, you don't remember Bo, the Nigerian kid, but you know, he's 36 years old. And it's funny because people will say, "How are you and Inman so close?" You got a son who's a freshman at Plano West, right? And I used to have to ride Bo. Remember I told you the story about when Matt was cussing Bo about, you know, right? He's the kind of kid you had to ride his butt. You couldn't go softer. He'd walk all over you, right? And then if he walks on me, I can't coach the rest of the team. So I had to be on him out real hard. And he just respects that. So 20 years later, people are like, "How are you guys such good friends?" Because he basically rode your ass the whole time. And he said, Inman told me the truth, right? And he's not there to make you happy in the moment. And that's one thing, that's one of the uncomfortable truths as a coach you have to live with. You got to find a way to discuss it with people, because they're not mind readers. And you got to be able to explain it without malice, but you got to be able to explain, like you said. I mean, if the goal is for everyone to get the equal slice of the pie, then your son should play equal minutes. But if the goal is to win, then you have to trust me that we're working toward an end. And that's the hard part, because, and that's why you find out if you lose a few games early in the season, you find out who the second guessers are, because I've had kids come up and say, "Well, coach, we're losing with him." And I'll be indelicate here where I was more delicate there. I'd say, yeah, but we'd be losing by more if you were in because he's still better than you. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? You go to
There's
practice.
truth. There's truth right there. Yeah.
Go to practice. Hey, Gory Johnson used to coach out of Kimball one time. This lady, she gets out. She's one of the screaming. There's that one screaming woman, and she's in every gym in America, and she seems to follow you around. The one who just has to have every single thing she thinks heard by everybody in the gym. So his mom's going bat crap crazy, and she comes up to Gory and she wants to talk to him about her son not shooting a basketball. He said, "Ma'am, before we talk about that, I want you to come to 2 practices, okay?" So the lady comes to first practice, and she comes to about the first 5 minutes of the second practice and got up and left, and she never heard from him again. Later on, he bumps into her, and she's, "What happened?" Well, I kind of came to realize why my son don't shoot the ball in games.
Let's
practice every day, lady. We're not trying to be average. I'm not trying to play second fiddle players. I mean, and how many times did people tell you that they played a little basketball back in the day? Well, I watch Law and Order every night, but I don't think I represent myself in court, and I don't drill my own teeth when I go to the dentist. And even though I'm pretty sure I know which tooth hurts, geez, well, I played a little ball back in the day. Well, how little did you play? How far back in the day?
And even to that point, that thinking is flawed, because you and I both know too, there's some great players that aren't great coaches. They're great skill. They're great players that can't teach skill. One of my biggest issues early on in coaching was that I could still play, because I would think in my head, I could do this better than they're doing it right now. Or I would skip steps in teaching because I already knew what it should look like.
Right. No, it's really easy to have that happen. The Showtime show with Jerry West, and they say there's a lot of inaccuracies here, so I'm not quoting that it's the truth, but the scene is Jerry West comes up to Jerry Buss, and he says, "Listen, we got everything we need here, except there's one problem." And what's that? He goes, "Me." He goes, "I sit over here, and I'm just freaking miserable." He goes, "I look out at those guys, and all I can say is, why are you me?" Well, you're Jerry West. You're the logo. There's not even a second you, much less 5 of you. So, I mean, to the point of, average players being better coaches. I mean, who would be a better coach, you or Darren or Bracey, who had to work harder to get where they got? They were able to skip a few steps. No bad on them.
Yeah,
but you had to learn every step. In fact, but you brought up a good point too. My wife has learned to swim, and she's African. She always fell into that old black people can't swim crap. I said, "Oh, if you can hold your breath, you can swim." So we started working on it, right? And what happened was that, and riding a bike. She'd never swam, and she hadn't ridden a bike in years. So the first time we swam, I didn't go back to real basic, simple things like cupping your fingers or little thing, pulling the water, just a little simple stuff, because it's so fundamental, so rudimentary. I don't know how to tell someone to breathe. I don't know why I breathe. I just do. Well, that goes to the point where sometimes if you're too advanced of a player, you can't, you're Jerry West yelling at 5 guys who can't be you. Well, you're a Hall of Famer, and they're just average pros. So it's really, really difficult. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you can do. It matters what they do. It doesn't matter what you know. What they do. What does it really matter? What they do. And that's why I hate the coaches who are finger pointers. And that's why I used to love saying this. Like, we go out and lose a game, and I say, "Guys, listen, man, I'm going to go out there and talk to this reporter, and I'm going to tell him that it was all my fault. I didn't have you guys ready." I said, "You know better than that. We went over this stuff. We made some mistakes, but I got you." And I really think that's important that you do that, because then down the road, they ain't throwing bombs at you. But if you think you're going to throw bombs at your point, in fact, I learned that a long time ago. The newspaper doesn't really come into play now. It's social media. But if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. Only use the media to amplify positive things. Because somehow, if they read in the newspaper back in the 80s and 90s, it was the gospel truth, even though it was the same thing your coach had been saying every day. If somebody else says it, I'll give my wife a hard time. I'll give her a compliment. She doesn't accept compliments. My wife's beautiful, but she doesn't accept compliments. Well, then someone else will be, and she'll be really nice. I said, "So a stranger can get you? You're going to ride my butt? Come on, man."
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballology. What's your BSA score? The Ballology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Ballology mobile app. Elevate your game. I want to jump in right there, because I struggle with that. Teaching, we focus on shooting a ton at our school. It's one part of the game that we really hang our hat on.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, coach, I talk about their shot with them. I feel like every day I'm praising them for the adjustments. Just if they're shooting great, just keeping them going and helping them to be mentally tougher, that it'll never fail. There'll be a kid that'll come to me one day. Coach, I met with a shooting coach and you told me this and this, and now I'm really, and maybe I'm not mature enough yet to get over the fact that I'm pouring in every day, but yet one person one time says something and now it's fixed. Now you're on the path, and I don't know. Maybe you can help me.
Hey, did you have a cool uncle? Did you have a cool uncle who would say things that your dad wouldn't say, but it was gossip? You said it, and your dad was just nagging. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Well, that's why ultimately you have to have a leader, because you got to have somebody on your team that will speak what you would say in their own voice. Not be coach's boy. You don't want to be that.
Yep.
Got to be a guy who's willing to pass on the messages in your own voice. And the bottom line is a team without a leader, which the first leader is the coach. Second leader has got to be your player leader. But it's like you ever see a speedboat that doesn't have a rudder? The faster you go, you just spin in circles, right? That's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
You have to have a rudder to direct a boat into a direction. Now, if you got a rudder and you got some power, now we can get someplace. But if you got no direction, you spin in circles. Yeah. And that's why this whole idea that the Lakers were going to be anything but a joke made me laugh, because I predicted that from day one. Anybody who bet the Brooklyn Nets as the favorite to win the NBA championship year should be drug tested. No, they'd melt the cup if they drug tested that person. Do they have to be an idiot? Easy. I mean, you kidding me? Because what's your experience with all-star teams? They're not teams. They're not teams. Hey, here's an interesting one. I was talking to the general manager of the Strasbourg, France team over there when I was with John, right? And he was talking about when John got injured, they brought a G League kid in, right? And they don't like the G League kids because they don't guard anybody. There's no physical contact at all. They won't touch anyone.
Wow.
And Nicole went further. He said, Tom, if I won't take a player that has been in the G League for 3 years because they're content to play in a non-defense, non-contact, hey, look at me, I'm auditioning for my next job. They're not willing to do the little things it takes to win. Because even if we don't think Strasbourg, France is a big deal, to Strasbourg, France it is. That GM's still responsible for winning. They still have to have their goals of what they're trying to accomplish and everything. And so we talked about the G League, like Jemias Ramsey, the kid that went to Duncanville. He went everywhere, like 4 high schools in 4 years. And then he went to Texas Tech, remember? And then he came out. He's never played. I don't think he's played a game in the NBA yet. And he's probably never going to. He's third year G League. So where do you go now? And there's nothing wrong with being an agent. All right, nobody ever says when they're an 8th grader, gosh, I hope one day I can go to school at North Texas, right? Everyone's going to UT, everyone's going to A&M, right? And nobody ever says in junior high school, I hope one day I can play professional basketball in Iceland, Bosnia, Turkey, whatever. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Good money, didn't you? You made some pretty good money, didn't you?
It was really fun. Fun. Yeah.
But the whole point is that was never their goal.
Yeah.
So I used to talk to, here's one for you. I talked to Sagona, who's been up in Collin County for about 80 years now, right? And I was talking to Jimmy one day. He's one of the best guys ever. And I said, Jimmy, who you recruiting? I said, Tommy. He's really, I got his voice like, Tommy, you don't recruit at JUCO? He goes, what the F? He goes, these guys don't ever think they're going to JUCO. He goes, you wait until the dream dies and then you talk to them the next week. And if they want to come play for you, they come play for you.
Once reality sets in, then I'll talk to them.
Right. Well, that's my point about playing overseas.
Yeah.
So am I going to get in line with you when you're a 4-star 11th grader and you're a 4-star player because your last name is James and you could dunk a ball in 8th grade or, whatever.
Yeah.
But what kind of settle itself out, because the bottom line, though, is there's a lot of opportunities overseas for those players. There really are.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? You made me think of the fact there's a big possibility that players aren't as different now as we think they are from even when I played. Maybe there is a time, where there was a big shift, but this idea of players now are soft compared to even 20 years ago or compared to 40 years. When my first few weeks in Iceland, I had a few teammates tell me that I was a different type of American. And I asked them, I was like, what do you mean by that? And they're like, we typically don't like playing with Americans. And so I dove deeper. They said because they don't play hard. They don't hustle. They don't really care. And I took my brand of basketball that I had from Baylor that I had to adopt because I couldn't, we had talked earlier, I wasn't athletic enough to survive this hard-nosed, take charges, dive on the floor, give up my body mentality. I took it over there and I just fit right in right from the very beginning and flourished into the point where they they had a chant, and I haven't told many people this, but it was Mati Scrati, which means Matt the Devil, because that was my style of basketball and the fans loved it. They appreciated it there, but it was a different kind of basketball. So maybe it's not that necessarily that kids have changed that much. It's, or maybe the game has, but I don't know. I felt like what you're talking about, how the G League players are guys that struggle over there because they don't, that was happening back then.
Well, it's funny. You remind me of a story 25 years ago. Someone said, kids of today have changed. And I countered by saying, no, the parents have. Right. So I still think you can coach the way you want to coach. I think, I would say, have the courage to tell the truth to players and just do what you want to do, but explain to them why you're doing it. You don't have to let everyone shoot threes. Look, you know what a 3-point, 2-point equivalent is. If you don't shoot 33% from the 3-point, which is equivalent to 50 from the twos, why are you shooting the ball? Because, and I don't know if you agree with the statement, but if a guy shoots less than 50%, he almost certainly is taking bad shots. Because if you're taking good shots, you should make half of them. Now, do you know what a good shot and a bad shot is? Well, we'll figure that out as time goes on.
There you go. That's the key. Yeah.
Right. But do you know what a good and bad shot is? Now, you're open at the 3-point line. Well, there's a reason you're open, son. They watch videotape too. Jesus, come on, man. Are you kidding me? So at some point in time, the idea that everybody gets to shoot the three in equal opportunity, no. No one's going to post up, no. Like, you can't tell me you can't still run a 1-4 shuffle cut. The Nigerian point guard, the kid's 6 foot tall, 205 pounds. He's about 2% muscle or 2% body fat. And I don't even know where the 2%'s hidden. Maybe in his earlobes, right? So he kicks the ball to the wing. He rubs off the little screen. We pop the post out, right? And Bull's isolated in the post. He's 205 pounds being guarded by a 150-pound kid who's peeing down his leg. Why would you not do that?
Yeah.
And so I think the idea that you were afraid to tell a kid that he can't shoot the three, well, if you explain to him why, Larry Bird did it when he was first coaching. He wasn't a great coach, but he's a pretty good GM. And when he was coaching, he used to tell people, he said, you earned the green light. You earn it in practice. Everyone's got a red light until you shoot 33% in practice. Then we'll give you the yellow. Then the yellow turns to the green. And Steph Curry and Golden State, I won't blame them. Let me qualify my statement. They probably destroyed the style of play for soft coaches in the sense that everyone wants to play like Golden State. Well, yeah, when you got the roster Golden State's got, you just feel free to play like Golden State plays. Yeah. Please.
What a great point.
You don't have Steph Curry. You don't have Klay Thompson. You don't have Day. And even Draymond. You still needed Draymond Green. You still got to have an Andre Iguodala. You can't do it with that pretty boy soft guard crap, please. Yeah.
But let's also not forget really how difficult it is. You mentioned soft coaches wanting to do that. That won't work. Steve Kerr has to have incredible control over the actions that are happening, even though he's not calling plays, the actions that are happening over the shot selection, over the culture of the team. Because if you try to play a style like they play, but guys don't understand what good shots are, the shot selection isn't something they know. Their egos are too big. Because what is impressive to me about that team more than anything else is the selflessness. Yeah. But when you and I are talking, it's May 3rd, and we're just coming off of Steph Curry reclaiming his starting role, but the dude was a sixth man for multiple games after being an MVP and a third-year guy playing over him because he's coming off an injury, and there wasn't one negative soundbite, facial expression. That's hard.
I didn't even know about that, but I'm willing to bet you that I know why. Because Steve Kerr, who's brilliant, and he's surprisingly tough. He's not Steve Nash. Sorry, Steve, but he's got a toughness about him, right? Yeah. And I guarantee you, he walked up to Steph and said, "Steph, listen, man, I know you're struggling. I was a shooter. There are times you feel like you're throwing a golf ball in the ocean, and right now you feel like you're throwing a beach ball in a golf hole. So let's take the heat off you, bring you off the bench, just relax a little bit, take it easy. You're making $44 million on the court, you're making 44 off. You're having a good year, Steph. Just relax, take it easy. I got you. When it matters the most, you'll be there the most." And like that brings another story to mind. I went through a period of playing where I had 3 or 4 years in a row, I had a great sophomore. right? Abdullah was a great sophomore. Joe Fultz was a great sophomore. Burkhead was a great sophomore. And I would always take these guys and say, listen, man, the worst thing on a team to be his coach's little, I won't say the word, little witch boy, little boy. You don't want to be that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, they're already going to think I'm baby to begin with. I said, look, are you good enough to start for his team? They say, yeah. I said, okay. Do you care more about who's at the jump ball circle, or do you care who's playing the last 4 minutes? Okay, so then trust me. So every year I had a fake starter. Senior came in, not that I didn't play him, or didn't. The guy who really played probably should have been a sixth or a seventh man. You start him, see how it works out. But at the end of the day, what do you play? You play your best 5 players. Yeah, but by telling them that, explain it to them. Joe, I know you can start anywhere else in town, and people are going to say I'm an idiot because that was where I was really good coaching wise. I would take a problem and be proactive as you can't imagine. I would get way ahead of that. I never let that stuff gather up on me. I hate to say it, but I'd lie sometimes. Look,
it's called point guard. We call them point guard lies. Point guards are the best liars, and they're white lies most of the time. But they in order to get a teammate or the team going in the direction, those point guard lies have to come out.
Up someone's butt, right? You just had to tell them what they needed to hear to get them through from point A to point B. It's really funny because I've said this to them before. I said, I'll take a stretch. I'll say, you remember when you were kind of melting down? And I'll say, come on, man, that's all right. Yeah, coach, I kind of remember that. They get that like, yeah, I remember you were pretty cool then. I said, did it ever dawn on your dumb butt I was lying? Did it ever dawn on you I was just trying to get you through the fog of war from point A to point B before you puked on yourself any more than that? Yeah. So what's my lesson? You got to do that for those guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to tell a guy it's okay and not show them up. We come back Robertson's senior year, right? We're a completely different team. John's junior year, he averaged 14.5 points and about 9 assists because we were loaded. Next year, we're not loaded. He averages about 26 a game and about 7 assists. But I told him, you're going to have to score a bunch. Yeah. So we had this big Russian kid named Anton Korolev, 7'1". He wears a size 22 shoe. Can't play dead in a cowboy movie. He's brilliant. The guy works for NASA right now. He builds rockets. He's a great kid, right? He's got the worst hands in the history of America. So John's running a ball screen. And if you've ever seen a kid play, he just makes the perfect read. So, he'll stretch it and drop it to the slip. I hit a little pocket pass, all these little slick things. And Anton can't catch anything. So John's getting frustrated. I said, John, come here for a second. I said, you don't like when I show you up in a game, right? No. I said, well, I don't really think Anton's too much like it. You're showing him up right now. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you rank his hands? He said, about a 1. I said, no. He said 2. So you probably gave 1 point more than he deserves. But I got news for you. He's not going to catch the ball any better tomorrow than he catches it today. So at some point in time, you got to decide who you will and won't throw the ball to.
Yeah, knowing your personnel, like KYP, that's a huge thing. Yeah.
How many quarterbacks stop throwing the ball to certain receivers because the certain receiver is the one who always gets the ball picked because they let the ball get into their pads or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a confidence level. I said, but as far as showing them up, because that's one thing I was really big about that. I would never want to show my players up because I showed you that courtesy, even though I have the right technically to be an ass, right? But because I showed you that courtesy, I expect that back double. We'll deal with this tomorrow. Shut up in the meantime, right? Know that everyone's watching and most of them don't like us. I'm obnoxious and you're from Plano. They don't like us. I used to say it all the time, I'm obnoxious and you're from Plano. They don't like any of us.
What's something you would do differently if you could start over in coaching today?
Good question. Well, it's funny. I think I ended up in the right place by accident. And I'll explain that. When I first started, I was Buzz Williams. I was going to be the college coach. That's all I ever wanted to be. High school was a little below me. Pro, it's sleazy, disgusting. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was sleazy, disgusting basketball, right? So over the course of time, I remember Ron Powell. I was a volunteer assistant down at South Oak Cliff High School. And Ron said, if you're going to go to college, you got to go now or you got to go when you retire. Because in the meantime, in between the bell curve of the money, you'll make too much money in between to get a job. I mean, who's going to pay a high school coach $100,000 first year on a college staff? It'd have to be probably a Power 5, right? More than likely, right? So anyway, he talked about that. So basically what happened was I got a good high school job and started making some money. And I think I ended up in the right spot because of that, because I really thought college was the angle. So I think by accident, I was lucky because like I said, I would either be Buzz Williams making $8 million a year, $6 million a year. I'd be the guy. Yeah, have you seen the movie The Scheme?
No.
Oh, write this down. Please write this down right now. The Scheme. It's on HBO Max. It's that Christian Dawkins movie about, he was the runner for Andy Miller. They got all those 4 college coaches on a wiretap.
Okay.
Remember the Oklahoma State coach, Chuck Person out at Auburn, somebody out at USC, blah, blah, blah. You got to watch it.
Okay.
And I would have either been making $6 million a year, I'd be the guy who got caught by the FBI because I think I just ended up by God's will, serendipity, and good fortune. I kind of ended up in the right place. And now, if you look at it now, I look completely different. Now, I've been saying for 15 years that college is professional basketball. Well, now it is because you have a portal and an NIL. So officially it's professional basketball. And I've said for 10 or 15 years, high school is college because everyone's recruiting, right? So now if I got a job, the only job I want in basketball really, if I could get if Matt gets a GM job in the NBA, he's one step away from getting a head GM and he hired me to scout. I'd like to do that. Or if I could do the agent deal overseas. Yeah. Because agent, you're representing a product and it's a marketing concept, and that I like. And on a pro level, look, have you ever seen the movie Moneyball?
Oh yeah, love it.
Okay, remember that scene when he's trying to coach Jonah about how to release a player, right? And he's fumbling all over himself. He goes, "Oh, stop. Let's flip roles." Man, I gotta let you go. I know you got a lot of good basketball left. It's just not going to be here. So listen, I want you to see our travel secretary. She's got your ticket. I want to wish you the best of luck. You call me anytime. Just you let me know what I can do. You take care of yourself because that's a business. We don't have to have the charade. Remember when Jerry Tarkanian was doing his Father Flanagan thing? I just want to help the poor and privileged Black youth of America. Well, then give Urkel a scholarship, not just Stacey Augman and Larry Johnson, man. Come on, man. Breaking that crap. So now that I come back and look at it, the way it's turned out, every level of basketball now is professional. It really is. It's really disgusting. It's really pretty disgusting. And if you have a great player right now, what's the likelihood you can keep him 4 years? Richardson, Texas seems to have something in the water up there. Yeah. Kayshawn Wallace stayed. Rylan Griffin stayed. Kid from Drew Timme stayed, right?
Yeah, he was at J.J. Pierce, I think. But yeah, Richardson, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Richardson, somehow, I mean, they're all making it. What's his name? Miles Turner. He went to that basketball powerhouse known as Trinity. That's a joke. It's a football powerhouse full of Samoan kids. Yeah. He somehow made the NBA. Yeah. You don't have to go to those places. In fact, you know what's funny? You know the kid that came back, the Plano kid. What was his name? The kid that came back, about 6'7" kid. He came back from Oak Hill Academy about halfway through the season. And his dad was dangling him at West.
I don't know.
Anyway, the long story short was he validated what I've said for years. Everyone that watches Oak Hill Academy and Montverde, they always see the number one draft pick, but they only can play 5 guys. There's still 5 or 6 guys in those schools who ain't playing at all, and that was that kid. He went for 2 years to Oak Hill, didn't play very much, and came back to his high school. Well, you know, Kyler Edwards plays for University of Houston now, played for Texas Tech before that. He was at Bowie when I was down there, right? Well, he verbally committed to Bowie. Then he leaves to go to Findlay, or verbally committed to Texas Tech, I'm sorry. He goes out to Findlay Prep, and guess where he ends up going to college? Texas Tech. Weren't you going there in the first place? With this idea that we have to travel around to improve our brand and our – man, I wish that every parent who's marketing – I want to hang quotes – marketing their kid would understand that if you did the same thing to a beautiful young lady in a tight mini skirt, what we would call you, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
The same thing.
I like the idea of if you're good enough, they'll find you. And I think that was the case before, and
it's certainly the case now.
Yeah.
It's certainly the case. Okay, John Morant, flew under the radar a little bit. Okay. They found him, didn't they? And here's another poison pill for kids. If my high school coach or my mom or my dad or whoever hustles me onto an EYBL team, I will therefore then be seen as an EYBL player, which goes me to a Power 5 conference. But let's go through the list of people that those people never heard of. Did they ever hear of Luka Doncic before he showed up? Did they ever hear of all the bigs, all the European kids, all the Congolese kids? Anybody ever heard of those guys? Jonathan Kuminga. You never heard of that name, right?
No.
Okay. Jonathan Kuminga grew up in Lubumbashi, right down the road from my wife. Oscar Shibwe is the kid going back to Kentucky. Same thing, right? And there's all kinds of people. I've never heard of any of those kids. Yeah. So when they get there, Micah Peavy, the kid Micah Peavy was interviewed by someone who said that his dad told him, he said, if you really want to have an impact at TCU, play defense because you're better at that, and that gives you time to catch up on the offensive end, which is good coaching advice. And I kind of felt bad for Micah because he might have mentioned it, but he took a picture with Jemias Ramsey, R.J. Hampton, and himself, and they were all 3 going to the league. Well, R.J.'s hanging by a string. Jemias is not going to make it, and you're at your second school. What's really disgusting is the idea that every time an 8th grader dunks, someone says, "Man, you a pro! Man, you a pro!" Because if you say that to everyone, it's the broken watch theory. Broken watch tell the right time twice a day. If you say it sooner or later, you're going to say, I was the first one to tell you. I saw it early. I have vision. And I just think it's just disgusting. Yeah. And I'm so glad I'm out of it. I don't mean that in like a self-righteous way. And I was fortunate because I saved enough money and I invested well, and I got married late to the right woman instead of early to the wrong woman, and just things fell in line the right way. But I feel bad because I'll never forget Dave Peeler down at Highland Park. Was one of my very best buds, man. He was at Clark High School when I was at Shepton when we first broke in, and we talked about 7-8 years ago. And he said, T.I., aren't you glad this isn't the first 5 years of your career instead of the last 5? And I said, oh my God. That's why if you're a young coach and you love the game, take the time to have a relationship with the kids, because it's a buffer between them and your parent, between you and their parents. Take the time to be honest, because the truth never has a bad day, right? And if things don't go your way, they don't go your way. But don't tap dance around it, because you'll be miserable. If you're going to try to play politics and keep everyone happy for 25 years, you're going to be an average husband, an average father, and a really bad coach.
The speed round is going to be quick little questions. First thing that pops in your head. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Pumpkin pie, spice ice cream.
Wow. That's a first right there. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
Texting or talking?
Texting.
Favorite holiday?
4th of July.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
I would go back to, that's a good question. 20s and 30s.
20s and 30s. And you can observe, not necessarily because Coach Drew, he's a big history buff, or he likes to learn about wars and things going on. He was like, I'd like to go back to like World War II. Then he paused. He goes, but I don't want to be in it.
I like 20s and 30s because you'd have the roaring 20s followed by the Great Depression, followed by the coming out of it. That'd be interesting to watch.
Wow. Yeah.
I invested in the market a lot, so that'd be interesting to see how they, because history repeats itself. So.
Your favorite place to travel?
Hawaii.
Mine too. 2 more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Used to be about 15. I swear to God, I'm down under 1. I almost gave up drinking coffee completely.
Wow. How's it been? Have you noticed a big difference with the having less caffeine in your system?
No, it's kind of funny because, Ritalin is actually technically a stimulant, right? And it makes no sense that you'd give a stimulant to a hyperactive kid that then in turn would settle him down. But it's like there's a word they use, the contrary effect, okay? Well, I'm a hyperactive guy. Do you really think the caffeine is what makes me hyper? So my point is, I don't think this has any effect on me. Because, when a kid lies and says, I want Ritalin, the way they catch him is if he doesn't slow down. If he speeds up, he's a liar, right? Well, my point is the average person drinks coffee to speed them up. I just drink coffee because it tastes good, but it had no effect.
There it is. Last one, probably the most important. Godfather or Star Wars, or it could be neither.
Godfather.
Nice.
And the last thing on Godfather. Godfather 2 might have been the greatest sequel in the history of the world. And Godfather 3, they should just shoot. They should shoot anyone who was involved in that.
They blew it. It was
awful.
Coach, I just want to say, one, I've really enjoyed your friendship because we kind of randomly run into each other for a year, but I always feel like it's just like seeing a really good friend. I think you have that kind of quality that's unique. But this was so enjoyable for me just to get to listen to your thoughts on the game, how much your thoughts make sense about the game. And I'm just blown away, blessed the time that you gave.
Well, anytime you ever want to talk, don't hesitate. I got all kinds of time. The best thing about retirement, funny story, I went and played with Burkhead and his dad, and we played golf with some little Audi, right? And this old guy comes and he goes, Coach, I hear you retired this year. I said, yes, sir. He goes, the best thing about retirement? I said, no, sir. He goes, you get up on Sunday, you dress up really nice, take everyone to breakfast, go to church, try not to curse too much. And he goes, the next 6 days, they're all Saturday. You realize how fun it is to go to Costco on a Tuesday morning? Come on, man.
That's big time. But you earned that.
I got time for you.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.